Hello, everybody. I'm Lavar. I work at the floor. I do a few other things as well. Um, yeah, first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. I was supposed to have my friend Peps here, my colleague, but he had a vaccination today. So that's good news. The bad news is he feels worse than he did yesterday, so he's not on the stream today. Um, so, yeah, I guess there's like not really much to explain other than to welcome our guest today, which is Mala. So hello.
Hey Lavar, how you doing, bro?
It's kind of weird because I was sort of preparing to do more of an introduction and for there to be somebody else in the room. Obviously, I've known you for a while, and yeah, we kind of talk kind of regularly. So yeah, so gonna have a cup of coffee, and
Yeah.
we'll have a chat.
Nice, let's do it.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. Yeah, just
actually,
yeah, go
on the hot drink thing, I'm going to give you credit for something because usually I drink coffee. So in the daytimes I'm on coffee. Today I'm on this one, which is from Ecuador, which is lovely.
What is it?
But it's a coffee from Ecuador.
Okay.
I've got a few friends that are coffee roasters, so I get sent quite a few different types of things. So every week I seem to have something completely different.
Gotcha. Nice.
But yeah, this one's nice. It's from yeah, Full Court Press. I think they're in Bristol. So yeah. But the thing I want to give you credit for is that last time I spent a bunch of time with you, you put me onto this.
Which one is that? Bengal Spice?
It is, yeah. It's what I call tiger tea. And
yeah,
so
this
this is now, yeah, absolutely a staple in the studio. And this is my everyday tea. Anytime it gets to about 6 or 7 o'clock, after that time,
yeah,
this is the tea.
Good shout, man. Yeah, they do a nighttime one as well, which is called Sleepy Time.
Oh, okay, is that the one with the bear on the front?
Yeah, it's got chamomile and lavender and all sorts of goodness in there. So my kids like that. I like it as well, but yeah.
Cool.
Not like a good tea.
So, yeah, we'll probably come back onto tea in a minute.
Cool.
This is
1 second. My light looks really bright. Let me turn it down a bit. That's a bit better.
Yeah, you're kind of very prepared for this kind of thing. Yeah, when you came on earlier and you were like, "Oh, I'm just going to change my camera," and you went from being on the webcam on your laptop to having lights and having a proper camera, and I was like, oh, "Okay, cool." I had one of those like American Psycho moments, like where you just like, it's like you gave me the business card, and I was like, "Oh, that off-white coloring," like.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's going to be pretty casual today. So
nice.
I've got a bunch of kind of starter type questions over here, and the way that we're doing this, it pulls through comments and questions and stuff from the YouTube and from Facebook and the floor, and I can see what's happening on the floor over here as well.
Okay.
So yeah, if anybody kind of says anything, makes a comment, asks a question, and I want to kind of touch on it, I'll bring it in and it'll come up on the screen. So that's
okay, cool.
That's cool. So yeah, vaguely what these talks are is just generally a sort of exploration into creativity. So it's not so much talking to you about specific techniques that you use and, you know, how do you get this kick drum sound and all of that thing. I've seen umpteen interviews with you where you do that. It's more about the thought process behind some of the things that you create and your approach to things. So yeah, we'll get into those kinds of things. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was this, how you got started, how you started on your journey.
what really turned me on to making music and wanting to be involved in music is, it goes back, and I've said it many times as well. It was listening to pirate radio station back in kind of like the early 90s. It was coming across this music that was so alien, but at the same time, I felt so connected to it, you know. And from then, really, I knew that I wanted to be involved in music one way or another, and that's kind of changed and progressed over the years, you know, from going to the local record shop and picking up flyers. You know, back then not being able to afford a pair of turntables, so second best thing was a pen and paper and writing lyrics. So, you know, we used to, you know, MC at house parties and at raves when we were younger. And when I say we, I talk about, you know, my friends, Koki and Pokes as well. And as I got into my mid-teens, I was able to get a pair of turntables. So I used to love buying records and mixing jungle. And but it was the MCing that I really, really enjoyed. And I had some interesting experiences through playing at raves, as well as I signed a record deal as a late teenager to a major, and we did a track which was a very bizarre and crazy and unfortunate experience. But I think that was probably, that experience actually gave me the fire to be purely independent and self-sufficient. So I'm truly grateful for that experience, really. And yeah, whilst I was on that project, actually, I was already starting to make music. And when I started making music, I wanted to kind of recreate 1994 jungle, because that was the era that I loved.
I feel like everyone started down that route. Like, I just want to make a jungle tune. I just want to get an amen break and just chop it up and make it. Yeah.
And yeah, I guess a combination of what was happening at that time, as well as old influences in jungle and kind of dub, you know, artists like Augustus Pablo. Yeah, the sound that I began to develop started becoming very clear to me what it was I wanted to do and where I was going. And it just so happened that there was a group of us that were all doing that, you know. So that's kind of how it started in a summarized kind of way. Obviously we can, over the years, it's, you know, I was deeply ingrained into the whole kind of different processes along the journey. But it's funny because I come across Nit and Sawney released an album.
Actually,
was it today?
A few of my friends were on it. Yeah. I think it came out today, but a few of my friends were on it, and so I kept seeing on Instagram, "Oh, check this release out! Check this release out!" And it was all the same thing. So I feel like that was probably some massive collaboration type project. I haven't heard it yet. That's on my list for tomorrow. But
I'm really excited about that. And the reason why I bring it up is because back in 1999, he released an album called Beyond Skin. And that album, still to this day, I always take, like an evening just to sit down and listen to that record from start to finish. You know, it really is like a desert island record for me. So the fact that this album that he's released today, which is called Immigrant, is kind of labeled as the sequel to Beyond Skin. And Beyond Skin was just massively influential. Not necessarily as a songwriting point of view or a sonic point of view, but just within his music, it seems so worldly. And I don't mean that from a world music point of view. It's not really a term that I like that much, to be honest, but you could just hear the influences of the world in his music, and it really resonated with me. You know, not just the different sound, but just kind of like the message within his music as well. And I remember listening to that album. A good friend of mine, Sarah, she bought it for me for my birthday, and in '99. And that really inspired me, and I knew that I wanted to travel with music kind of from that point on, really. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear his new record.
It's kind of weird, actually. I've been lucky enough to work with Nitin a few times, and I feel like a lot of a lot of the people in the industry that I really respect are people that have worked with him. So yeah, I hadn't actually thought about how he's kind of almost like a hub for certain types of creatives, and how not only the music that he's worked on, but also his outlook on things has kind of influenced a lot of people that I really respect. Maybe he's somebody that I need to talk to on one of these as well.
Yeah, for sure. I was fortunate enough to be invited to. He does a radio show called Knitting Spins the Globe, and I was lucky enough to be invited on there, where we collaborated on a track together many years ago. And yeah, that was kind of like a dream come true for me, you know. So yeah, it's yeah, and a great guy. You know, they always say, you know, you never want to meet your heroes, but he's one hero that I was, you know, blessed to have met.
Yeah, if he does come on one of these, you should come back.
Cool.
That'd be cool. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of. I didn't know that you were an MC, so I learned something there. But yeah, kind of the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about was kind of that a lot of the music that you're sort of associated with, and the kind of DJ culture and you know, sort of party culture, rave culture, all of that. That's not really how you live anymore so much. And so I feel like in the time that I've known you, I've definitely seen a shift from, you know, and not just with you, with quite a few people, where I only ever saw you DJing or at parties or at raves and stuff. And now usually when I talk to you, it's like 11 a.m. and we're talking about other things, you know. So
or just
yeah, I just wanted to kind of, yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about some of those things and what kind of impact you feel like they've had on the way that you create music and the way that you approach your work, you know. So I guess, yeah, you've touched on one there. Let's talk about your running, because you run every day.
Yeah, I actually, this is my third year of running, and I met my third year on like the 6th of. I completed the second year on the 6th of January, and I said to myself, I'm gonna take some days off here and there, which I have done, which has been great. But yeah, it's so dangerous how quickly your body gets used to not doing something. So, you know, it's important that I have to remind myself I've got to drag myself out and keep on it, you know, because I'll happily sit in the studio from morning till night.
Yeah, I've been there the last couple of months, bro. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, definitely last summer I ran probably 3 or 4 days a week.
No, you were getting on it, man.
And you were the inspiration for it. It was like every time I spoke to you, you were like, "Yeah, I'll give you a call back in a bit. I'm just about to go out on a run." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I need to get on this running thing because, yeah." But I definitely feel like. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, for me, it was I had a really weird year in 2017. And, I guess a couple of years before that, you know, you're kind of getting lots of signs and signals that certain changes need to be made. And, you know, for anybody that doesn't live a touring life, I think it's very difficult to explain how kind of demanding it can be, especially when DJing and touring isn't the only thing that you do, you know. There's a number of things that I do for my work, as well as taking care of a family. And I think when you're a self-employed in the music industry, you get used to living with a lot of uncertainty. And I guess the reason why I worked as hard as I did for as long as I have is because, you know, because of that uncertainty somewhat, and you want to create security. But at the same time, it can become at the detriment of your health because you just are constantly burning. Now, I've never been one to be too much into partying, so that was never a problem for me. Don't get me wrong, I've always liked to rum as much as the next man. But when you tour week in, week out for an excess of 15 years, you know, all of the late nights, all of the plane journeys, the train journeys and everything else, it soon catches up with you. And as I say, 2017, just felt exhausted. And I got toward the end of the year, and I just remember just kind of having this experience where I knew I had to make change, you know what I mean? And literally I woke up the next day and that was it. I literally had kind of switched off or closed one door and opened up another door. So for me, the transition was very, very easy, thankfully. And then a year after that is when I started running, basically. So the first switch was sleeping properly, sleeping regular hours, not staying up till 4 a.m. every night in the studio, you know, but going to bed at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock and, you know, getting a good night's sleep every night, you know, unless obviously when you're on road, then you've got to do what you got to do. And yeah, just, I remember I was in Morocco for New Year's Eve in 2018. And I remember was reading 2 books. And one of the books, no, one was an audio book and the other one was a book. One of the books I was reading was Mary Kondo. It was about minimalism.
Okay.
It was a Japanese author who's, which was really interesting. And the other audio book that I was listening to was by a guy called David Goggins. It's called You Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah. That guy's story is incredible.
Have you read or listened to that book?
Okay, so last year when I was running, and you know those days when you're just like, I don't want it. I don't want to run. It's raining. I'm still achy from the last run.
Yeah.
His audiobook, just listening to him talk, you're like, right, okay. Yeah, just suck it up. Just go do it.
Basically. That audiobook was transformational for me, because what I loved about that book and what I love about his attitude, like he's raw, but it's also, there's just no excuse, you know. If you're able, somehow you've got to make yourself willing, you know. And that really inspired me, not necessarily to start running, but actually to go in the sea every day. Where I was in Morocco at the time, the sea was freezing. And I like going in the sea every way, but I'm not somebody that particularly likes the cold. But I was like, I'm going to get in this sea every day, a couple of times a day. And, you know, the kind of like the energy and how good I felt going in the sea for 15 minutes a few times a day. I guess that kind of stayed with me. So when I got home, we landed late at night. I remember going to bed, and I remember waking up the next morning and my body was like, you need to do something. You need to go out and run. And I think that was, you know, partly because I'd been going in the sea for 7 days. And then for some strange reason, I just decided to, you know, stick on my tracksuit and go out. And what was even more bizarre for me at the time is that it was the first time I ever done like an Instagram story. Because I'd always done Instagram posts, but I'd never said anything to any type of audience with the camera kind of held up, you know. And for some strange reason, I said, right, I'm going to run for a year. And it doesn't matter where I am or how tired I am or what I've done the night before. And, you know what I mean, I'm going to document it here. And making myself publicly accountable was also a really important thing.
Because, do you know what? I just watched the rapper, his name Big Heath. He was like, you know, a big lad, and he started an account, and it was publicly just like, cool, I'm gonna lose the weight, I'm gonna start running, I'm gonna eat better, I'm gonna do better. And I think there's something to be said for that kind of that public sort of being held accountable for stuff, you know, and where it's not just you, and it's not just the couch is pretty comfy today. I'll do double tomorrow, and just all of that. Yeah, because in a way you don't really, you're not really affected by what the public say about you one way or another. But actually, the fact that I've openly said I'm going to do something, I'm the type of guy that's like, I've got to do it now, you know. And one of the real
blessings of that journey for me was the amount of people that used to message me on a regular basis to talk about health and talk about running and talk about, how they are trying to start running and on their journey. So, I was very lucky. There was a couple of people that I spoke to that were able to give me some really key pointers. Big up Charlie Dark, my brother. He's an avid runner for many, many years. So he was the one that helped me with certain things about making sure I get the right footwear for your feet, and also making sure you're doing certain stretches and stuff like that before and after you run. But yeah, it was just a community that opened up outside of music. It was a different conversation that I was having on my social platform, and that was really, really nice.
Sorry, I'm just seeing some
cool
questions and comments coming in.
Okay. Cool.
So somebody's asked what the name of the audiobook was that you were talking about, and this David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah, David Goggins. Yeah.
Jake has said that in the chat, so
yeah,
the chat's
David Goggins. You can check out. You can check. It's kind of weird because I remember seeing him many years ago and seeing some of his posts on YouTube and Instagram, and he's pretty raw, and I'm not necessarily so into that kind of loud, shouty type of vibe, because it can come across maybe kind of like quite macho or something like this. But actually, when you read or listen to his audiobook, you completely understand why he is the way he is, and it's kind of almost none of those things but all of those things at the same time. And for me, understanding him in context put everything about him in a completely different light. Unbelievable person.
He actually did a really good I think he was on Joe Rogan at some point and sort of told his story on there. And obviously because the Joe Rogan thing is like more of a long form type podcast, I think it was 3 hours long, so you really got an understanding of who he was. I think, like you're saying, out of context, a lot of the things that he says are just really extreme. And I can see how that would rub people up the wrong way. But yeah, I'm on that as well. And yeah, that I just seen a question come in on the Facebook as well, which part of the David Goggins thing is the answer to this for me, which was what's on your running playlist. And that's one of those like extreme, if I'm really not feeling it, I go to that. I go to like just listening to him talk, not even music.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've definitely gone for runs where I've listened to audiobooks. To be honest with you, and this goes back to again the whole reason that I started running. It was to kind of have an active meditation, really. So in fact, I don't really want to be distracted by anything. Don't get me wrong, it's a great way if I need to listen to an album or I listen to lead to some demo submissions and stuff like that. I can kill a nice hour listening to music and running at the same time. But most of my runs, like significantly, I would say 96, 97% of my runs, the playlist was my brain, and it's much more difficult to run when there's no music. Like I find it much more difficult to run, but that was the part of the process. It's getting it really out of your comfort zone and really forcing yourself to be with yourself. And once you're able to kind of find some sort of stillness within your mind, and when I would run, I would always take me a good mile to kind of for my breathing and my body to get into gear. And anytime there's kind of like pain, which is a lot in the first like 3-4 weeks, you're going to be aching all of the time. But I've found that the benefit of going through that mentally and physically, and how I felt when I would get into my house after my run, that's where the reward is. The run isn't the actual running isn't the reward. The reward comes after you've run. So in a really strange kind of way, the more extreme for me, the better. So when it was freezing cold or snowing, pissing down with rain in really hot countries where I've ran, where, it's 40 degrees and you just sweat by waking up in the morning. Like for me, those runs are much more enjoyable because it almost takes it takes those other elements to take myself away from my own mental process that's going on, you know. So
I actually feel like that's one of the things that I have been working on as well, is that is kind of reattaching my mind to my body in a way, and just kind of sometimes when you force yourself to do things that are uncomfortable or to put strain on your body in those kinds of ways, it forces you to really concentrate on things like breathing.
completely.
And just before the first lockdown, I was about 10 yoga classes in. I'd just started doing yoga. And actually before that, I'd started doing jiu-jitsu and realized that I was nowhere near flexible enough, nowhere near strong enough. And people like half the weight of me like could wrap me up.
Gonna injure yourself.
So I decided, yeah, okay, cool, I'll do some yoga. And I probably did like 8 or 9 classes, and I found it strenuous, but I didn't really get it. And then I think it was like the 10th or 11th class, which was just before lockdown, I realized that it was kind of about the breathing, and that if I concentrated on the breathing, I got so much more out of it. And it was about that kind of sort of stillness and kind of just being aware of your body and your breathing. And I feel like, I mean, that's probably meditation. That's probably what it is. And that's probably, part of what the running thing is as well.
For me, definitely, yeah. It was, you know, once I lock in a good rhythm with my breathing and my body movement, man can just keep running, you know. Like it becomes nothing, you know. And you might be achy, but once again, you get over the psychological thing. Because what I found, and this is something that obviously David Goggins talks about a lot, he says something like, when you think you're at your limit, you're probably only still at 40%. And so many times I had to test myself on that. So I would trick myself. So I would be running. I'd blatantly want to stop. My mind's telling me your knee's busted. You meshed it up yesterday on your run. You've been running for a year. You can stop running now. Just walk it off. And I'm like, nah. In my mind, I'm like, right, just run to the next lamppost, or run to the next tree, or you give yourself kind of like a landmark of where you're going to run. And then
that's what you told me when I started. You were like, when you're about to stop, just run to the next lamppost.
And then I would say to him, when I got to the next lamppost or my next landmark, I would just say, right, keep going, I'm off, you know what I mean, get to the next one. So running was a huge psychological battle with myself. And if I can say anything, it's really offered me just balance, you know, apart from the health and the physical benefits. Just mentally, I feel just balanced, you know, which is really nice.
Cool. Something that you touched on briefly earlier was this. So when you were sort of making changes to your lifestyle, were you supported? Did you have people around you that were supporting those changes, trying to encourage you to do sort of better with your life, or to, you know, because probably you were, in a sense, forcing yourself to be in a position where you were going to interact with people less.
What do you mean?
Well, I think a lot, sort of doing, you know, being a DJ and that kind of thing, having more early nights, being out running in the daytimes, spending more time kind of cooking and doing things like that. You were probably less available to some of the people that were around you before. Did you notice any change in any people as you were doing things like that, or?
I think if anything, I was more available. Because I was more rested. You know, when one is exhausted, you kind of don't have the mental capacity to take on so much. And so for me, I felt like, as I say, back in 2017, I was at my limit. So actually, when I reset and begin to incorporate other things in my life, my capacity grew. So actually, I don't feel like that happened as much. Yeah, I feel fortunate. There was definitely a lot of people around me that were really supportive, as well as publicly, there were people that loved to take the piss. But as far as, you know, even people that you know want to have a kind of like a cheeky little joke about what you're doing. And that's one of the key messages that I got from a lot of people. Like, I want to start doing this, but I'm worried that my friends are going to take the piss out of me. And, you know, it's one of those ones, like, from my experience, anybody who is truly trying to elevate themselves to be a better person, they're not going to belittle you or make fun out of you for you trying to do the best version of yourself. So those people that, you know, at the end of the day, it makes no difference. I'm still going out for my run. Yeah. I'm the one who will reaps that reward, you know. Running isn't for everybody. Living a healthy lifestyle isn't for anybody. This is not about me. I'm not doing it for people to go, oh, this guy has made a change. Look at his lifestyle. I want to be like that. Like, I genuinely need to do it because I was at a point in my life where things really needed to change.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I think partly when you are somewhat public, you know, it can be quite, there's benefits and, you know, negatives for taking people on that journey with you. But, you know, anybody that knows me. I don't really mind what people want to say. It's all good. If, you know, it's that thing. If you want to say it, you say it. It's different when, and the thing is most of the time people say it, but when they see you in person, they don't have anything to say, you know, so it couldn't be that important.
So I suppose the next thing is, I've left this like vague, but on purpose. So how does what you consume impact your work? Now, I kind of, when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about kind of all aspects of what you consume, you know, so whether that's the books you read, the films you watch, what you eat. What are there any particular things that you think have a huge impact on what you create?
Maybe not so much now.
Okay.
I definitely think when I was younger. And the reason why I say that is because when the Digital Mystics thing and DMZ thing started, and when we were making music back then, like my daily meditation and my daily consumption of, you know, music, films, books, people, conversations, dreams, imagination, heart, soul, spirit, it was very particular things that I was gravitating toward. And, you know, if you look at certain or a lot of the track titles from back then, a lot of the track titles and a lot of the songs that I made are all kind of questions and answers, or answers to my own questions. Because for me, that's what the whole DMZ thing was, come meditate on bass weight. Like literally, you know, it wasn't just, oh, we need you know, it's a fancy slogan for the flyer. Like this is how man was living. So I think in those earlier periods of my life, I think had I been consuming other things, then perhaps I would have been led down a different path and wanted to go about my life in a different way. But I had some interesting experiences that happened to me when I was around about 18 years old. And it was just signs and messages that I couldn't ignore. And as a youngster, I felt very confronted and conflicted by this, because on one hand, you're being offered something, knowing that if you live a certain way, then potentially this will be offered to you. And then if you choose the other side, there's also another path where things will be offered to you. And it was for me as that 18-year-old to make that choice. And I believe that I took the hard road. So yeah, to answer your question, I think what we consume massively impacts our life. And I think as I've gone through my career, there's been times where, you know, you don't want to eat right, you don't want to live right, and yeah, of course it will impact you. But I think the one thing that I feel something that's unwavering for me is what I want to do with music, and the importance and the responsibility I feel that I have with regard to the music that I make and the music that I release and the artists that I work with to some extent. Well, no, maybe not actually. Well, of course, I feel a huge sense of responsibility to the artists that I work with, but that's for completely different reasons, you know. But yeah, from a creative point of view, yeah, I think people know what I'm about.
Something occurred to me that I was going to ask you a couple of weeks ago, which is, do you hear music in your head, like just regularly?
What do you mean? In the shower,
well,
like
yeah, just like
or on a
plane?
a
lot of the time, I'll have a soundtrack in my head, regardless of whether there's any music playing. I've got a tune that's going in my head.
Okay.
And loads of things feed into it, you know.
Okay.
And I just wondered whether you hear tunes in your head ever. Like,
yeah, sometimes, but a lot of the time I'm in the studio, and I think when I'm not in the studio, I'm kind of quite happy for the silence and for the conversation, or for everything else that isn't music, to be honest. Yeah.
This is a question that often gets like left till really close to the end of these kinds of things, but I feel like it's a mistake to leave it till too late. So yeah, what advice would you give to the younger you? Do you see what I mean? Like, that's one that always is like towards the end, and then you're just like,
yeah, and it's not a 2-sentence answer.
It's not part of the quick fire round.
No, it's not. Cool, dear. Yeah, there would be lots that I would say to my younger self. I don't even know where I would start, being a 40-year-old today, what I would say to the 18-year-old of me from yesterday. If I would go back to before all of the music time, and I would go back to myself when I was playing football, because I was playing at a high level for many years. And what's been really nice during this period of downtime, shall we say, is that I've been able to coach my son's football team for the past year. And we train 3 times a week for 90 minutes with the, between 11-year-olds. And it really rekindled my love for playing football and for watching football. I haven't watched as much football in this past year. I stopped playing football when I was about 19, and I kind of never really looked back, to be honest with you, until this year of being involved in it again. And I think there's part of me that if I could say anything to my younger self, as a footballer, I would have told my younger self to really, really go for it and not worry about other people's game and how other people play. Don't worry about what anybody says, but really, really go for it. Because I do think I would have really enjoyed to play football as a career. And I guess that kind of goes back to, would lead on to me being a late teenager and in my early 20s when all of the music thing was starting as well. I think we were pretty fearless back then. We went completely against the grain. While music was speeding up and getting more hyper, we slowed down music down and made it more stripped down, bare and minimal. When everybody in those big magazines used to say, oh, this music will be around for a year, it's just this weird this weird kind of dance music. We cracked on with our big sound systems in our dark rooms, so we didn't really care for what the outside world thought of us. But yeah, I think I would have just any advice to my younger self, it's a hard one, man. There's definitely things I would have done differently. I think always how you manage work in relationships. I would give myself advice on those things, because I think, you learn on the job, basically. Most people I know have no kind of formal education in running businesses or being, being a self-employed musician or anything like that. So, and very, very few people at a high level offer any real advice to you as a younger coming up. People it's kind of almost like when you have kids, everyone wants to tell you the good things that happen, but no one wants to get down to the real nitty gritty. So you're kind of like left on your own just to kind of figure it all out. And I guess, there's a blessing in figuring it out for yourself. That's how you make your way. And, that's what defines you as the person that you are. And that's how, the way that you act and the way that you, the way that the world sees you is that's how you will be defined when you're no longer here. So I don't think I would, there's a few things I would change, but, not much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I totally feel what you're saying about, having to work some of it out on the job and all of that. Most of the people that I'm close with, most of the people that I know that have had any level of success or kind of longevity in this, they're figuring it out. They're still figuring it out. There's people that are in their 60s who have done some incredible things with their lives, and you talk to them and they're still an 18-year-old kid inside figuring it out. So I don't know if that ever goes away.
No, I think I think that's the source of the fire that keeps burning, isn't it? It's that young version of yourself who is constantly looking for a new experience, and how can we have new experiences in ways that connect people for positive reasons and in ways that are meaningful,
Yeah. So like I said at the beginning, we talk quite regularly, and we've got a couple of WhatsApp groups that we're part of that are pretty nerdy. So I think it would be, I wouldn't be doing everything justice if I didn't ask you a little bit about if there's any equipment or technology that's impacted your creativity. Obviously, a big chunk of what we talk about outside of this right now is, as much to do with equipment and, how that moves forward as, talking about running and tea.
For sure.
So
yeah, man, I'm fortunate enough to speak to a number of producers and engineers from around the world that have, I think in some way we've kept each other sane throughout this very bizarre time that we're going through. Excuse me. And equipment and technology. I was having a conversation the other day with a friend about this, and as the years have gone on, I've built more and more of a hybrid studio. So of course I use software, but there's also hardware I love as well. As you can see, I've got, my synths in the background.
It's one of those ones where you always get a shot of the shot of right, there's the person, and then just probably half the people watching it are looking in the back right, he's got
what synth is this? Yeah, this is the latest. This is the latest one to the edition. This is the Udo Super 6, which is nice. which is beautiful, man. Amazing.
What I always find funny with being in a lot of these rooms is that what's on the other side of the camera is kind of interesting as well. But technology and equipment that has impacted what you do or the way that you create.
I think as the years have gone by, and the fact that we're glued to screens more and more, and then going back to what I was saying, the conversation I had with my friend, years ago when I started making music, sitting down at the computer all day making music wasn't really a thing. But that's because there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't the amount of absurd emails, just the ridiculous amount of emails that we get, on a daily basis. So I was much less off the screen, even though I was on the screen all day making music. And where that ratio has changed, where you're on the screen as much for other work, I've just found that actually making music, the last thing that I want to do is be glued to a screen making music. So for me, the tools that I have around me, the bits of hardware, whether that be, you know, synthesizers or, you know, effects units or compressors and stuff and distressors and stuff like this, or EQs, that I kind of have kind of analog everything. Yeah, it's just nice to be able to create with your hands and with your heart and your mind, and not looking at meters. And I'm in another WhatsApp group, and I was talking to I sent a message out the other day to some of the people in the group, saying one thing I think is really important to do, especially in the maybe the starting phase of, say, like mixing down a record or something, is don't put any of the analyzers on your EQs and stuff like this, like EQ just by ear, because I find that I listen to what I feel and hear rather than listen to what I see, you know. And yeah, so all of the hardware that I have is very much into that ethos. It's like it makes me feel and hear what I want rather than see what I want.
I actually felt, yeah, that's something that was massive in live music. So during the time that I've been a live engineer, everything has moved from being analog mixing consoles to digital ones.
Right.
And one of the aspects of that, I mean, obviously the digital mixing consoles are much smaller, much lighter, easier to move around, takes less crew to move them. Some of those big consoles used to take 6 people to move them. And so they're really convenient. But one of the things that nobody ever spoke about was that those digital mixing consoles have a screen. And so now when people are engineering, they're looking at a screen the whole time. Whereas in the past, there was no screen. So you were looking at the musicians, you were looking at the artists. And so you had more of a connection with the artist because you spent more time looking at them. And that in a way, sometimes the technology detaches you from the kind of human interaction. And so it kind of makes it more convenient, but it's not really the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's, you know, of course, I look at meters and there's a huge benefit to that, especially when you want to do surgical stuff. But I think back to the early days of when I was making music, when I was using just Reason, and this is like Reason 1, when there was no analyzers on your EQs. I remember
when it was just called Reason.
Yeah, it was just called Reason. I remember the red Reason EQ that literally you either boost the top end or you boost the bottom. I had no idea, you know, in terms of what frequencies I was manipulating or anything. But there was a lot to be said for that, man. It was just like you went on what felt right and what sounded right, and you know. I think there's some part of my career I lost that because I'm, you know, so busy like looking at the screen and looking at meters and like, oh, that compressor's hitting like, reducing by X amount of dB, and it kind of says that you should, you know, people say you shouldn't reduce a signal by that much. There must be something wrong with the sound, but actually, if it sounds right, it sounds right, you know, and you just gotta go with it and just and play with it. And as I say, I just reminding myself to use my ears more than my eyes. So yeah.
I think that's a really valuable piece of information for kind of people that make music or mix music or any of that, is to use your ears, not your eyes. That'll be the bit that gets cut out and put on Instagram to distract people all day. Okay. That'll be the bit that gets cut out. So we're sort of moving into the last couple of questions, which are, I guess, more in that sort of the quick fire round than the what advice would you give to your younger self, because that always ended up there, but was never really one of those. So this one, albums that have changed your life, impacted your life. So the first album that you bought, the last album that you bought, although you might not have bought an album recently, a lot of people have streamed albums recently, and an album that you will always play. I think you kind of touched on an album that you'll always play.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning of this. But yeah, first album you bought.
First album that I brought. I don't remember the first album that I brought, but I remember a couple of the first. Some of the first records that I brought as like a 4-year-old with my mum at like W.H. Smith's was like. I think one of the first records I really liked was isn't it called Go Mickey by Tony Basil?
Hey Mickey.
Is it Hey Mickey?
Yeah.
Yeah. I must have had that record when I was like, I think my mum wrote on it. It's like 1982 or something like this. Another record I had was Musical Youth past the Dutchie on the left-hand side. You know that one, of course. Vinyl was a 7-inch. They were some of my early records. I'm trying to think. I don't think I bought so many albums, to be honest with you. It became, as a teenager, it was just, I started buying records, a lot of music, as I say, like in 92, 93. And they're all kind of like Jungle 12s and stuff like this, you know. And the last record I bought, what was delivered recently? Actually, the last album I bought was Green Tea Peng's first album. That's the last vinyl I bought, which I bought that last year. I bought a couple of copies. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
And yeah, you've already touched on an album that you'll always play.
Yeah, Knit and Swanee Beyond Skin. Yeah.
That's a great choice.
Yeah,
nobody said that one yet, but that's such a great record.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of, anybody that hasn't heard that one that's watching this, yeah, do yourself a favor. And actually, I wish that there are actually quite a few records where I wish I could listen to them for the first time again.
Yeah, for real. For real.
And yeah, that's definitely one of those.
Yeah, so, if you're going to listen to it, you know, give yourself the hour, you know, turn everything off, do what you need to do, and just, you know, just put it on and listen to it.
That's kind of why I haven't listened to the new one. I saw that it came out, and I was like, I'm not just going to have it on in the background.
No. That's tomorrow. That's me this weekend as well. Yeah, I can't wait.
I'm gonna flick through my selections of coffee and be like, right, that's the coffee that's going to go with this album, and
nice.
Yeah, do that sort of connoisseur stuff, and you know, sit in the studio and just concentrate.
And that's the beautiful thing again about kind of like studio investment, is just that all of the music that you listen to just sounds amazing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, actually I've got that, and Hiatus Coyote had some new music out, so I'm gonna check it out tomorrow as well. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I was at Outlook Festival in Croatia when they were playing.
Okay.
And I think I saw you out there, because Outlook and Dimension are the same festival, basically, like a week apart. They're on the same site, aren't they? So.
Yeah, and I'm been fortunate enough to become almost part of the furniture of those places.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you're at that festival, you'll bump into you. So
most likely, Which hopefully they're going ahead this year. So fingers crossed, summertime we can get out there and you know, enjoy some good weather and some great music. But yeah,
that's something else I was thinking about.
Say again.
That's something else I was thinking about is like festivals and traveling and stuff. You're like one of the few DJs that I know that still plays vinyl.
Yep, true.
So yeah, does that become any more difficult with traveling and stuff?
It's always been difficult for the last amount of years with traveling. Do I consider doing it differently going forward? Yes. Have I made that decision yet? No. So yeah, I don't know. I just love playing dubs though, man.
Like, yeah, that's the thing. I'm still going to see you in. I'm still going to see you in an airport at like 5 in the morning at some point in the next year with your bags of records.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, that's not going to change.
No,
so, last couple of questions.
Yeah,
So everyone kind of said that, you know, everyone widely accepted 2020 as a bit of a write-off. I don't necessarily feel like it was entirely. I feel like it, you know, like you said earlier, a lot of the people that we know that are in the creative industries have spent their whole life in flux. You know, things have changed from week to week for their whole life. So this was just that on a grand scale. So yeah, are there things that you will keep from the next year forever?
Yeah. 2020 was a year that really allowed me to kind of remember some really important things about re-energizing oneself, realigning oneself, relearning. And I think most importantly is that I gave myself a lot of time to be able to rediscover and not just rediscover, but also discover new things about what I want to do from a music and a career point of view, but also what I want to do from other areas of my life. So the lesson, I think, and the note to self that I will keep from 2020 is, again, it's just the importance of time. Like throughout the lockdown, all we had was time. That's what it felt like. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't see anyone. So it just was a real hardcore reminder of like, choose wisely what you do with your time, because it really is the only thing that we have.
That's ridiculously profound, but I kind of don't expect anything less from you and that question. So yeah, last question. What excites you moving forward? What are you looking forward to?
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing my family properly, man. That's the thing that excites me the most, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's been a minute still. That's been pretty tough, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm most excited about that. And yeah, I'm very excited also to kind of be able to reconnect with people through music again. You know, this is what I've dedicated my entire life to doing. You know, is connecting people through music, and it's something that I take great pride in doing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, that's kind of it. Like, I thought that was gonna seem really difficult with just the two of us and a bunch of people watching, but actually, yeah.
Well, big up to everybody for watching. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you tuning in and listening in this evening. Hope you have a blessed weekend.
Perfect. And so yeah, I think before I go, I'm kind of I feel like I want to mention that the platform that's kind of putting this on the floor, they've got a creative fund, which kind of is grants for people doing creative stuff. I didn't realize they were going to give out loads of them, but they're giving out quite a few of them. And amazing. So if you're a creative and yeah, you need some financial support, some help to do a project, then yeah, head over to the floor and see if there's, you know, apply for a grant. Yeah,
that's dope, man. Big up.
I've worked with loads of people that are like that have been awarded grants, and we've kind of filmed or created some profile pieces for them and things like that. And yeah, I've met a whole load of like super talented people. So yeah, that's definitely something that yeah, if there's any creatives out there watching this, yeah, it's a real thing. This real help out there, which is definitely useful right now, the way the world is. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, and yeah, thanks again to Mala. He's, you know, a legend, and I'll probably speak to him soon. And yeah,
thanks, man.
I'll be back next month with somebody else or some more people. Feel free to get in touch, put some messages in the thing, let me know what kind of stuff, what, you know. So far I've had producers and people involved in music, but it would be nice to maybe talk to some filmmakers or photographers or something like that as well. Let me know if there's anything that you want to see. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you all next month. Take care.
One love.